Ambassador Thomas Reynolds straightened his formal uniform as he stepped onto the gleaming transport that would take him to the Galactic Council chambers. Today was supposed to be routine, another boring session of trade agreements and minor dispute resolutions between the hundreds of species that made up the Galactic Alliance. Earth had only joined 50 years ago, making humans the newest members of this ancient coalition. Reynolds had a bad feeling about today. The emergency summons had come without explanation, and the Council rarely changed its schedule. As his transport glided through the massive space station that served as the Alliance headquarters, he noticed unusual activity. Security drones were everywhere, and representatives from other worlds seemed to be avoiding him. "Ambassador, we've arrived," said his aide, breaking his train of thought. Reynolds stepped into the Grand Council chamber. The room was a massive dome with thousands of seats arranged in rising tiers, each occupied by representatives from different worlds. The ceiling displayed a real-time map of the galaxy, with Alliance worlds glowing in peaceful blue. As Reynolds took his seat, he noticed the central platform was already occupied by High Chancellor Sol of the Solari Empire. The Solari were among the oldest species in the galaxy, tall, silver-skinned beings with 4 arms and eyes that shimmered like opals. They had been the peacekeepers of the galaxy for over 3 millennia. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in session," announced the council speaker, a small, reptilian being. "High Chancellor Sol has requested immediate attention on a matter of grave importance." Sol stepped forward, his silver skin reflecting the light dramatically. "Esteemed representatives of the Alliance, for 3,000 years, we have maintained peace across our galaxy. Today, I stand before you with a heavy heart to announce that this peace is threatened." A murmur spread through the chamber. Reynolds felt a chill run down his spine. "The species known as humans," Sol continued, pointing directly at Reynolds, "has demonstrated an unprecedented rate of technological advancement and territorial expansion. Their military capabilities have doubled in the last decade alone. Our projections indicate that within 50 years, they will possess technology that threatens the safety of all Alliance worlds." Reynolds stood up abruptly. "This is absurd. Earth has followed every Alliance regulation. We've shared our advancements openly." "Not all of them," Sol replied coldly. "Our intelligence has discovered secret weapons research facilities on Mars and Europa. You're developing quantum-based weapons systems that could destabilize the very fabric of spacetime." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Reynolds tried to protest, but the speaker called for order. "The Solari Empire, as guarantor of galactic peace, hereby declares a state of war with Earth and all human colonies," Sol announced, his voice echoing across the chamber. "We demand unconditional surrender within 1 standard month. If these terms are not met, we will be forced to take military action to neutralize the human threat." Reynolds couldn't believe what he was hearing. "High Chancellor, there must be some misunderstanding. The research you're referring to is for defense only, and fully within Alliance guidelines. The Council will now vote on whether to support the Solari position," the speaker announced, ignoring Reynolds' protests. One by one, the representatives voted. Some abstained, but most sided with the Solari. Centuries of trust in the Solari as peacekeepers outweighed their brief relationship with humans. "The motion carries," the speaker declared. "Earth is hereby placed under military sanction. Ambassador Reynolds, you are granted safe passage to return to your world and communicate these terms to your government." Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, Earth's newest battle cruiser, watching the emergency broadcast from the council meeting. Around him, his crew sat in stunned silence. "Sir," his communications officer finally spoke, "we're receiving emergency recall orders for all Earth vessels. Command is initiating Defense Protocol Omega." Walker nodded grimly. He was a veteran of the Mars conflict, humanity's only real military engagement in space, but that had been against human separatists, not an alien empire with technology thousands of years more advanced than Earth's. "Set course for Earth, Maximum speed, he ordered, and get me a secure line to Admiral Garcia. Within hours, Walker was seated in the Emergency Operations Center beneath the Rocky Mountains, along with the highest-ranking military and political leaders on Earth. The room was tense as Admiral Garcia displayed the known Solari military capabilities on the main screen. They have over 10,000 warships, compared to our fleet of 200, Garcia explained. Their weapons technology can destroy planets. We have no conventional defense against such power. President Morgan, a normally confident woman, looked shaken. End negotiations. Ambassador Reynolds is still trying, Garcia replied. But the Solari aren't known for changing their minds. We have 29 days left before their deadline. What about evacuation? Someone asked. To where? Walker spoke up. The Solari control the jump gate network. There's nowhere in the galaxy we can hide. The room fell silent again until Dr. Emma Reeves, head of Earth's Advanced Defense Research, cleared her throat. There might be an option, she said quietly. My team has been working on something unusual. It's not a conventional weapon, but it might give us a chance. All eyes turned to her. It's a quantum field manipulator, she explained. It doesn't shoot or destroy anything directly. Instead, it changes probabilities. Changes what? President Morgan asked. Luck, Dr. Reeves said simply. It makes the impossible possible, statistically speaking. We've only tested it on a small scale, but the results have been promising. The problem is, we need more time to scale it up. How much time? Walker asked. 3 months, minimum, she replied. Walker exchanged glances with Admiral Garcia. We have 1 month. Then we need to buy time, the president decided. Captain Walker, I'm assigning you to protect Dr. Reeves' research facility. Admiral, prepare our fleet to delay the Solari as long as possible if they attack. The meeting continued late into the night as humanity prepared for a war they couldn't possibly win through conventional means. 2 days later, Captain Walker arrived at the secret research facility hidden deep inside an asteroid in the belt. Dr. Reeves met him at the docking bay. Captain, I hope you brought coffee, she said, looking like she hadn't slept in days. We've got a lot of work to do. Walker followed her through the facility, where hundreds of scientists and engineers worked frantically. Will it really work? He asked quietly. Dr. Reeves stopped and turned to him. Her eyes were tired but determined. The thing about humans, Captain, is that we've always been good at beating the odds. This just gives us a better chance at it. She pointed to a strange device in the center of the main lab that seemed to shimmer between existing and not existing. And right now, that's all we've got. As Walker looked at the quantum device, he couldn't help but wonder if the Solari had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were declaring war on a minor species. They had no idea what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner. The 3,000-year peace was ending. But perhaps so was the Solari's unchallenged dominance of the galaxy. The asteroid research base shook violently as Captain Walker made his way through the cramped corridors. Not from an attack. Thankfully, the Solari hadn't discovered them yet, but from the power surges of Dr. Reeves' experiments. For 2 weeks, the research team had been working nonstop, pushing the quantum field manipulator to its limits. Another failure, Walker asked as he entered the main lab, where smoke was clearing from a recent test. Dr. Reeves pushed her glasses back up her nose and shook her head. Not exactly. The field held for 12 seconds this time. That's 4 seconds longer than yesterday. Walker looked at the device in the center of the room. It resembled a metal sphere surrounded by rings that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Sometimes, looking at it made his eyes hurt, as if his brain couldn't quite process what he was seeing. 12 seconds won't help much in a battle, he noted. True, Dr. Reeves agreed, but we discovered something interesting. She waved him over to a screen displaying brain scans. These are from our test subjects. Notice anything unusual about this one? She pointed to a scan labeled Test Subject 7. Walker wasn't a doctor, But even he could see the difference. It's brighter, more active. Exactly. Subject 7 could maintain the field longer than anyone else. When we looked into why, we found that humans have a unique neural structure that can somehow interface with quantum systems. It's subtle, but it's there, and Subject 7 has a particularly strong version of this trait. Walker frowned. So some humans are better at this than others. Yes, but here's the really interesting part. Dr. Reeves pulled up another image showing multiple brain scans connected by lines of energy. When we linked multiple subjects together, the effect didn't just add up, it multiplied. 3 connected subjects could maintain a field 30 times longer than one alone. For the first time in weeks, Walker felt a spark of hope. And if we connected hundreds, thousands? Dr. Reeves smiled tiredly. Now you're getting it, Captain. In the command center aboard the Solari flagship Eternal Justice, General Vex studied the holographic display of Earth's solar system. His 4 arms moved constantly, adjusting the view, zooming in on various planets and moons. 17 days until the deadline. He noted to his second-in-command, Commander Lyra, "Have the humans shown any sign of preparing for surrender?" "None, General," Lyra replied, her silver skin catching the light as she moved. "In fact, our scouts report increased activity around their military bases. They appear to be preparing for war." Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Foolish creatures. Our smallest destroyer could obliterate their entire home fleet." "There is one anomaly to report," Lyra said hesitantly. "Our probes detected unusual energy readings from the asteroid belt, not matching any known human technology." "Show me," Vex demanded. The display shifted to show a cluster of asteroids. One of them pulsed with an unfamiliar energy signature that seemed to fade in and out of the sensors. "What is that?" Vex asked. "Unknown, General. It's like nothing we've ever seen. The energy pattern defies conventional physics." Vex narrowed his opalescent eyes. "I don't like unknowns, Commander. Send a scout ship to investigate, quietly. I want to know what the humans are hiding before we crush them." Back on Earth, panic had given way to desperate preparation. Every shipyard worked at full capacity. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted with weapons. Training centers operated around the clock, preparing soldiers for a war unlike any humanity had faced before. In the presidential bunker beneath New Washington, Captain Walker reported the latest findings from the asteroid base. "Dr. Reeves believes we can create a working quantum field that could protect at least part of our fleet," he explained to the assembled leaders. "But we need volunteers, thousands of them, with the right neural patterns." Admiral Garcia frowned. "You're talking about using human beings as what? Components in a weapon?" "More like a shield," Walker corrected. "The volunteers would be in special chambers, linked to the system. Their brains would help shape the quantum field, making the impossible possible." "Meaning what exactly?" President Morgan asked. Walker struggled to explain. "Imagine you fire 1,000,000 bullets at a target. Statistically, some number will hit, some will miss. The quantum field changes those statistics. Suddenly, most of the bullets miss when they should hit. Engines fail that should work perfectly. Shields hold when they should collapse." "It sounds like magic," someone muttered. "Clark's third law," Dr. Reeves said as she entered the room, looking exhausted but determined. "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is definitely advanced." "How many volunteers do you need?" the president asked. "To protect a single battle group. At least 500 compatible individuals. To shield the entire planet. Millions." The room fell silent as the magnitude of the task sank in. "We don't have time to test millions of people," Admiral Garcia pointed out. "We don't need to," Dr. Reeves replied. "We've identified genetic markers that indicate compatibility. A simple blood test can tell us who has the potential." President Morgan stood up. "Then that's what we'll do. Effective immediately, I'm authorizing a worldwide screening program. Every citizen will be tested. Those with compatibility will be asked to volunteer. Asked? General Reed questioned. Yes, asked. The President confirmed firmly. I won't force anyone into this, but I believe in humanity's will to survive. People will step up. 3 days later, the first volunteer group arrived at the asteroid base. 500 men and women from all walks of life, all testing high on the compatibility scale. They were escorted to a new section of the base where hundreds of special chambers had been constructed. Walker watched as Dr. Reeves explained the process to the volunteers. You'll each be in a separate chamber, but your minds will be linked through the quantum network, she told them. You won't lose consciousness or control. You'll still be you. But together, you'll be creating something greater than any of us could alone. A young woman raised her hand. Will it hurt? Dr. Reeves hesitated. We don't know for certain. In our small tests, subjects reported strange sensations, like being in 2 places at once, or seeing possibilities branch out before them, but no actual pain. What do we do in there? Asked an older man. Do we need to think certain thoughts, or just stay calm and open? Dr. Reeves said. The system will guide you. Your natural human ability to perceive quantum states will do the rest. As the volunteers were led to their chambers, Walker pulled Dr. Reeves aside. You didn't tell them about Subject 7's nosebleeds, he whispered. Dr. Reeves looked troubled. Those were from prolonged exposure. These volunteers will rotate shifts. Besides, we've improved the interface. Walker wasn't convinced, but he understood the stakes. How soon can we test the full system? Tomorrow, she replied. Just in time, too. Why? What's happened? Dr. Reeves looked grim. Our long-range sensors detected a Solari scout ship entering the belt 6 hours ago. They're looking for us, Captain. The clock is ticking faster than we thought. In the distance, the first volunteers entered their chambers, not knowing they were about to become part of humanity's greatest and strangest weapon, one that might redefine the very laws of possibility. The Solari scout ship Silent Observer glided through the asteroid belt, its advanced cloaking technology making it nearly invisible to standard sensors. On its bridge, Commander Trell studied the readings with growing concern. The energy signature is stronger now, he reported to his crew of 12 elite Solari scouts. It's coming from that large asteroid ahead. The asteroid looked ordinary enough, a lumpy rock about 20 kilometers across. But the sensors showed something very different, pulses of energy that seemed to bend reality around them. Prepare a detailed scan, Trell ordered. I want to know exactly what the humans are hiding before we report back to General Vex. The Silent Observer moved closer, its scanners probing the asteroid's surface. Suddenly, the ship's systems flickered, like a brief power surge had passed through them. What was that? Trell demanded. His science officer looked confused. Unknown, Commander. For a moment, our sensors detected thousands of human neural patterns, all connected somehow. That's impossible, Trell said. No human technology can. He never finished his sentence. Without warning, the ship's engines failed completely. The Silent Observer drifted helplessly toward the asteroid's surface. Emergency power, Trell shouted. No response, Commander. Nothing is working. Inside the asteroid base, Captain Walker watched in amazement as the previously cloaked Solari ship appeared on their sensors, dead in space, and drifting toward them. It worked, he whispered, turning to Dr. Reeves, who stood nearby, monitoring the 500 volunteers connected to the quantum field generator. Their ship just failed. Dr. Reeves nodded, her eyes fixed on the readings. The field affected their probability matrix. Systems that had a 1 in a million chance of failing all failed at once. She looked up at Walker. But we can't maintain this for long. The volunteers are already showing strain. Walker nodded. We don't need long. Deploy the capture team. Within minutes, a small human vessel left the asteroid base, heading for the disabled Solari ship. The team boarded without resistance, The Solari crew was too busy trying to restart their systems to notice the humans until it was too late. Commander Trell and his crew were captured without a single shot being fired. "This changes everything," Admiral Garcia said, reviewing the report of the captured Solari scout ship. "We now have access to their technology, their communications, and most importantly, prisoners who can tell us about their fleet movements." The Emergency Council meeting on Earth had a new energy now, a cautious optimism that hadn't been there before. "What did we learn from the prisoners?" President Morgan asked. "The Solari main fleet is still gathering," Walker reported. "But General Vex has grown impatient. He's planning to attack Mars colony in 3 days as a show of force, before the ultimatum deadline." "Mars has 10,000 civilians," someone pointed out. "Exactly," Walker said grimly. "Vex wants to demonstrate what happens to humans who resist." The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Garcia spoke up. "We have to defend Mars, but our conventional forces don't stand a chance against even a small Solari battle group." All eyes turned to Dr. Reeves. "Can your quantum field protect Mars?" the president asked. Dr. Reeves looked troubled. "The version we tested was localized. It could only affect a small area around the generator. To protect an entire planet, we'd need to scale up dramatically. And we'd need more volunteers, thousands more. The latest testing program has identified over 10,000 compatible individuals on Earth," Walker added. "But getting them all to Mars in 3 days is impossible." "Then we bring the fight to where we're strongest," Admiral Garcia suggested. "We position our ships near the asteroid base, where the quantum field is working. Force the Solari to come to us." "And sacrifice Mars?" the Mars colony representative asked, his voice tight with anger. "No," President Morgan said firmly. "We evacuate as many civilians as possible. Then we prepare a surprise for the Solari when they arrive." 2 days later, a desperate evacuation was underway on Mars. Every available ship shuttled civilians to emergency bunkers deep underground or off-planet entirely. Meanwhile, the UES Defender and 5 other battle cruisers positioned themselves in a defensive formation near the asteroid base, their crews nervously watching as the quantum field generators were installed aboard each ship. On the bridge of the Defender, Captain Walker received the final update. "Evacuation is 60% complete," the communications officer reported. "But we're out of time. Solari fleet detected entering the system." Walker took a deep breath. "Status of the quantum field generators." "Online, Captain. 100 volunteers aboard each ship, linked to the main generator in the asteroid." "And the special package for Mars?" "In position, sir." Walker nodded grimly. "Then we proceed as planned. All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage on my mark." The Solari attack force emerged from faster-than-light travel near Mars. A group of 30 warships, each one more powerful than Earth's entire fleet combined. They moved into attack formation, preparing to demonstrate their overwhelming superiority. Aboard the command ship, General Vex smiled coldly as Mars grew larger on the view screen. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their major settlements first." The Solari ships charged their main weapons, preparing to rain destruction on the red planet. But just as they fired, something strange happened. The energy beams that should have devastated the surface instead veered off course, missing their targets completely or hitting empty desert. "What happened?" Vex demanded. "Unknown, General," his weapons officer replied, clearly confused. "The targeting systems report perfect alignment, but the beams, it's as if they chose to go elsewhere." "Impossible. Fire again." The second volley was even less effective. Some beams dissipated harmlessly in the atmosphere. Others collided with each other, creating spectacular light shows, but doing no damage. "General," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface, and human ships approaching from the asteroid belt." Vex turned in surprise. "Human ships? They dare to attack us?" He laughed. "This will be even better. We'll destroy their pathetic fleet first, then finish the colony. The 6 human battle cruisers approached, looking tiny compared to the massive Solari warships. "They're in range, General," the weapons officer reported. "Destroy them," Vex ordered casually. The Solari ships fired and missed. Not just 1 or 2 shots, but all of them. Hundreds of energy beams that should have torn through the human ships instead went wide, passing harmlessly through empty space. Meanwhile, the human ships fired their much smaller weapons. By all logic, the powerful Solari shields should have shrugged off such attacks with ease. Instead, the human weapons found tiny weaknesses, slipping through shields that had a 1 in a billion chance of failing at that exact moment. 3 Solari ships erupted in flames. "How is this possible?" Vex roared, watching in disbelief as his perfect attack force began to fall into chaos. "What human trickery is this?" As if in answer, a new energy pattern emerged from Mars itself. The special package Walker had mentioned, a smaller quantum field generator with 200 volunteers who had reached Mars before the evacuation, their combined mental power now creating a protective bubble around the planet. The battle that should have been a simple demonstration of Solari power had turned into a shocking defeat. 7 Solari ships destroyed, the rest damaged and retreating in confusion. Back on the Defender, Captain Walker watched with a mixture of amazement and relief as the Solari fleet fled. "It worked," he said quietly. "It actually worked." But Dr. Reeves looked concerned as she checked the status of the volunteers. "Yes, it worked," she agreed. "But the strain on the volunteers was enormous. We can't maintain fields like this for long battles. And the Solari will be back, with a much larger force next time." Walker nodded grimly. "Then we need more volunteers, and we need to prepare for the real war." Across the solar system, news of the miraculous victory spread like wildfire. Humanity had bloodied the nose of the mighty Solari Empire. The impossible had happened. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, the main Solari fleet was already on its way, bringing with it the full might of an empire that had never known defeat. The great hall of the Solari High Command fell silent as General Vex finished his report. The defeat at Mars, the first military loss for the Solari in over 1,000 years, had sent shockwaves through the Empire. Supreme Commander Orax, the highest military authority in the Solari Empire, stared at Vex with cold, shimmering eyes. Unlike the silver skin of regular Solari, Orax's skin had a golden hue, marking his pure bloodline and high status. "You expect me to believe," Orax said slowly, "that primitive humans defeated our ships through luck?" Vex stood firm despite his humiliation. "Not luck, Supreme Commander. Our science division believes they have developed some form of probability manipulation technology. It defies our understanding of physics." "Impossible," another general scoffed. "No species has ever managed to control quantum probability fields. The energy requirements alone would be—" "The humans have done it," Vex interrupted. "I saw it with my own eyes. Weapons that never missed suddenly missed. Shields that never fail suddenly failed. It was as if reality itself bent around their ships." Orax rose from his throne-like chair, towering over the other Solari. "Then we will bring such overwhelming force that even altered probabilities cannot save them. I am taking personal command of this operation. We will gather the Grand Fleet, 10,000 ships. We will strike their homeworld directly and end this annoying species once and for all." The other generals murmured in agreement. Such a force had not been assembled since the last great galactic war 3 millennia ago. "How soon can the fleet be ready?" Orax asked his logistics officer. 7 days, Supreme Commander." Orax nodded in satisfaction. "The humans have had their moment of false hope. Now they will know true despair." On Earth, the celebration of the Mars victory was tempered by the knowledge that it was only the beginning. Intelligence gathered from the captured Solari ship indicated that the main fleet would arrive within 2 weeks. In the underground command center, Captain Walker studied the latest reports. The quantum field generators had been upgraded based on what they'd learned from the Mars battle, But the fundamental problem remained. They needed more compatible volunteers to power a field strong enough to protect Earth. Dr. Reeves entered the room, looking more exhausted than ever. The global testing program has identified nearly 2 million compatible individuals, she reported. But even with that many, we can only protect major population centers. Rural areas will be exposed. Walker frowned. And the side effects? Dr. Reeves hesitated. Worse than we feared. Extended connection to the field causes neurological stress, headaches, nosebleeds, in some cases seizures. Can we rotate them? Shorter shifts. We're working on it. But there's something else. She lowered her voice. We've discovered that children have much higher compatibility rates than adults. Their developing brains can adapt to the quantum interface more easily, with fewer side effects. Walker's expression darkened. We are not putting children in those chambers. I agree, Dr. Reeves said quickly. I'm just reporting what we found. The president has already ruled it out as an option. Their conversation was interrupted as Admiral Garcia entered the room, followed by an unexpected visitor. Commander Trell, the captured Solari scout leader. His silver hands were bound, but he moved with the natural dignity of his species. Our guest has decided to talk, Garcia announced. Tell them what you told me, Commander. Trell looked at the humans with a mixture of contempt and reluctant respect. The Solari High Command has assembled the Grand Fleet, 10,000 ships, led by Supreme Commander Orax himself. They will arrive in 5 days, not 2 weeks as you believed. Walker exchanged alarmed glances with Dr. Reeves. 5 days. Why are you telling us this? Because I have seen enough to know that this war is a mistake, Trell replied. For 3,000 years, the Solari have maintained peace through strength. But what your species has developed, it changes everything. This war will bring destruction to both our peoples. Then help us end it, Dr. Reeves urged. Tell us how to negotiate with your leaders. Trell made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. Negotiate? Supreme Commander Orax does not negotiate. He conquers. Your only hope is to convince him that the cost of conquering Earth is too high. How do we do that? Walker asked. Defeat his first wave so completely that even his pride cannot ignore it, Trell said simply, and I will help you do it. 4 days later, Earth's defenses were as ready as they could be. 2 million volunteers were connected to quantum field generators around the world and in the orbital defense platforms. Every available ship had been armed and positioned in defensive formations. At Dr. Reeves' laboratory in the Rocky Mountains, a breakthrough had been made based on information provided by Commander Trell. The Solari used a specific subspace frequency for fleet-wide communications. If they could disrupt that frequency using the quantum field, they might be able to throw the entire Solari attack into chaos. In the command center, President Morgan addressed the world one last time before the battle. People of Earth, tomorrow we face the greatest threat in human history. The Solari Grand Fleet approaches with the intention of wiping our species from the galaxy. They believe their advanced technology and overwhelming numbers guarantee their victory. She paused, her face solemn but determined. But they do not understand what makes humanity special. Throughout our history, we have faced impossible odds. We have stared into the abyss of extinction many times, from natural disasters, from our own wars, from cosmic accidents. Each time, we have survived. Around the world, people gathered in homes, in shelters, in public spaces, watching their president's address. Tomorrow, when you enter the quantum chambers, remember this. You are not just fighting for your own lives, but for the very existence of humanity. Your minds, linked together, will create something never before seen in this galaxy, a shield made not of metal or energy, but of possibility itself. On the bridge of the UES Defender, now the flagship of Earth's small fleet, Captain Walker watched the speech with his crew. Commander Trell stood nearby, still technically a prisoner but now more of an advisor. Your president speaks well, the Solari remarked. But words will not stop Orax's fleet. No, Walker agreed. but 2 million human minds linked together just might. The alarm sounded. The advanced scouts of the Solari fleet had been detected entering the solar system. All ships, battle stations, Walker ordered. Activate quantum field generators. Across Earth and throughout the orbital defenses, the quantum chambers hummed to life. Inside each one, a human volunteer closed their eyes and felt themselves connect to something larger, a vast network of human consciousness that began to bend the very fabric of reality around their planet. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin, and the odds were impossible. But changing the impossible was exactly what humans had learned to do. The Solari Grand Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel just beyond Earth's moon, a vast armada of 10,000 warships that filled the sky like metallic stars. At their center was the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander Orax's flagship that was nearly the size of a small moon. On Earth, billions watched in terror as the night sky filled with enemy ships. In the quantum chambers, 2 million volunteers felt their hearts race as the neural interfaces connected them to the greatest defensive network ever created. Aboard the UES Defender, Captain Walker and his crew prepared for a battle they could not possibly win through conventional means. Quantum field at full strength, the operations officer reported. All volunteers connected. Walker nodded, his face grim. And the new communication disruptor? Ready, sir. Targeting the Solari command frequency as Commander Trell suggested. Beside Walker, the Solari prisoner watched the approaching fleet with mixed emotions. Orax will begin with a demand for surrender, he said quietly. He enjoys the formality of it. As if on cue, all communication systems across Earth received the same transmission. Supreme Commander Orax's golden face appeared on screens worldwide. People of Earth, he began, his voice deep and cold. Your brief resistance has been noted, but it changes nothing. The Solari Empire has maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years. Your rapid advancement threatens that peace. Surrender now, and some of your people may be permitted to live as servants of the Empire. Resist, and you will be erased from history. President Morgan stood in the Earth Command Center, her back straight as she faced the transmission. We decline your offer, Commander Orax. Humanity will not surrender its freedom or its future. Orax's shimmering eyes narrowed. Then you have chosen extinction. The transmission cut off. All ships, activate quantum fields. Walker ordered. Earth Defense Control, initiate planetary shields. Across the planet, and through the orbital defenses, the quantum field generators hummed to full power. Inside their chambers, 2 million volunteers felt their minds connect, forming a vast network that extended beyond normal spacetime. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Orax gave the order. Begin the attack. Target their major cities first. 1,000 Solari warships moved forward, their planet-killer weapons charging. The energy they were about to unleash could crack Earth's crust and boil its oceans. But something strange happened as they fired. Weapons that had annihilated entire civilizations suddenly misfired. Energy beams bent away from Earth, as if reality itself rejected them. Targeting systems that never failed suddenly showed impossible errors. What is happening? Orax demanded as reports of failures flooded in. It's the same technology they used at Mars, his science officer replied, but on a scale I didn't think possible. They're manipulating probability fields across the entire planet. On Earth, in the quantum chambers, the volunteers experienced something extraordinary. Their connected minds could see possibilities branching out like rivers, and they could choose which possibilities became real. They chose the ones where Solari weapons failed, where shields held, where the impossible became possible. Captain Walker watched in amazement as the first wave of the Solari attack achieved almost nothing. A few minor impacts on the moon, one small strike in an uninhabited region of Siberia, but Earth itself remained largely untouched. Now, he ordered, activate the communication disruptor. Dr. Reeves, monitoring the quantum network from her control station, directed the combined mental power of the volunteers toward the Solari communication frequency. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Solari fleet, communication systems failed completely. Ships lost contact with each other and with their command centers. Orders couldn't be transmitted. Coordination became impossible. "They're in disarray," Walker observed. "All Earth ships commence attack pattern Omega." Earth's small fleet, enhanced by their own quantum fields, moved to engage the confused Solari warships. What should have been a hopeless battle turned into something else entirely. Human weapons found impossible weaknesses in Solari shields. Human ships dodged attacks that should have destroyed them. On the Eternal Dominion, Orax watched in growing rage as his perfect attack fell apart. "This is impossible," he roared. "No species can manipulate reality like this." "The humans can," Commander Trell had told Walker earlier. "And that is why Orax fears them. The Solari maintain peace through control of technology, of information, of power. But humans have discovered something that cannot be controlled." As the battle raged, the strain on the human volunteers grew. Nosebleeds became common. Some lost consciousness. The quantum field fluctuated as their minds struggled to maintain the connection. "We can't keep this up much longer," Dr. Reeves reported, her voice tense. "The volunteers are reaching their limits." Walker knew they needed to end this quickly. "Target the Eternal Dominion," he ordered. "All ships, all remaining weapons. Focus the quantum field there." The Defender and the remaining Earth ships turned toward the massive Solari flagship. The volunteers, sensing the critical moment, poured their remaining mental energy into creating one final, impossible probability. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Orax felt something change. The ship shuddered as systems began failing one after another. "Supreme Commander," his second reported, "something is happening to the main reactor. The containment fields are failing in ways that should not be possible." Orax understood then. The humans weren't just lucky, they were rewriting the rules of reality itself. "Prepare my escape vessel," he ordered. But it was too late. The quantum field had created a cascade effect in the flagship's power systems. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. From the Defender, Walker watched as the massive Solari flagship began to glow from within, energy building to levels that couldn't be contained. "All Earth ships, retreat to safe distance," he ordered. "Quantum field users, focus on protecting Earth from the blast." The Eternal Dominion exploded with the force of a small sun. The shockwave ripped through the Solari fleet, destroying hundreds of ships and damaging thousands more. The remaining Solari vessels, leaderless and in shock, began to retreat. On Earth, the quantum network finally collapsed as the volunteers reached their physical limits. Many would need medical attention, but they had held long enough. In the aftermath, as the surviving Solari ships fled the solar system, Captain Walker stood on the observation deck of the Defender, looking down at the blue planet they had somehow managed to save. Commander Trell joined him, no longer a prisoner but a witness to history. "The war is not over," he said quietly, "but it has changed forever." Walker nodded. The Solari ruled through fear of their overwhelming power. Now that power has been challenged. "More than challenged," Trell replied. "What your people did today will echo across the galaxy. The species that bent reality. The humans who defeated the undefeatable." He turned to face Walker. "The 3,000-year peace has ended, yes, but perhaps something better can now begin." 3 weeks later, a Solari diplomatic vessel entered Earth orbit under a flag of truce. The new Solari leadership, shaken by the unprecedented defeat, had come to negotiate. As President Morgan prepared to meet with them, she visited one of the hospitals where the quantum volunteers were recovering. One young woman, still weak from her experience, asked the question everyone wanted to know. "Did we win?" The president smiled. "Yes. But more importantly, we showed the galaxy something they never expected. They thought declaring war on humanity would be the end of us." She shook her head in wonder. Oops, there goes humanity, changing the impossible again. Outside, the stars shined a little differently now. Among them, a legend was being born. The legend of the species that had looked at the laws of probability and said, "These don't work for us. Let's try something new." The 3,000-year peace had ended, but humanity's story was just beginning. Captain Reed drummed his fingers on the control panel, staring at the large holographic display that filled the center of the mapping room. The three-dimensional star chart glowed with thousands of colored dots representing stars, planets, and space stations, all neatly labeled and categorized, all except for one section. "Computer, zoom in on Sector 87 Delta," Reed commanded. The map shifted, bringing into focus the edge of charted space. Beyond the last clearly mapped stars was a large area simply marked with red borders and the words "Human Space." No E-Interi. No details. No star systems. Nothing but empty space on the map. Reed had been with the Galactic Mapping Guild for 20 years. He had helped chart the toxic gas clouds of the Mira Nebula and had personally mapped the treacherous asteroid fields around the black hole at the galaxy's center. There was no corner of known space that the Guild hadn't documented, except this one. "This makes no sense," Reed muttered. The door to the mapping room slid open, and Navigator Thomas walked in carrying 2 steaming cups. He handed one to Reed. "Still obsessing over the empty zone?" Thomas asked, taking a sip from his cup. 20% of our galactic map is incomplete," Reed replied, not taking his eyes off the display. "How can the Guild claim to be the authority on cosmic cartography when we've left such a massive blind spot?" Thomas shrugged. "Humans want privacy. The Council respects that." "Since when does the Council respect anything that gets in the way of progress?" Reed turned to face his navigator. "The humans are barely a century into faster-than-light travel. The Zrill have been crossing galaxies for 50,000 years. The Axoni were building space stations when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. What could they possibly have that needs this level of secrecy?" "Maybe they're hiding something," Thomas suggested, half-joking. Reed's communication band buzzed. "Captain Reed, report to Director Mock's office immediately." Reed sighed. Perfect timing. Director Mock's office was minimalist, with just a desk and a single chair for visitors. The walls displayed moving images of famous stellar phenomena the Guild had mapped over its 1,000-year history. "Captain Reed," Mock said without looking up from his desk terminal. The director was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large, dark eyes that rarely blinked. "Your access logs show you've been reviewing the human space boundary data repeatedly over the past month." Reed stood straight. "Yes, Director. I've been studying the edge zones in preparation for the Outer Rim mapping project." "Your project is the Outer Rim," Mock said, his voice emotionless. "Human space is restricted. Not just to you. To everyone. With respect, Director, I don't understand why. Our mission is to create complete and accurate maps of." "Our mission," Mock interrupted, "is to follow the Galactic Council's directives while mapping space. And the Council has made it very clear that human space is off-limits." Reed pressed on. "The humans are a young species. What threat could they possibly pose that would justify leaving a hole in our maps?" Mock's large eyes narrowed slightly, the closest thing to emotion Reed had ever seen from the director. "Captain, you are one of our best cartographers. Your work in the Mira Nebula was exemplary. But your curiosity has always been your weakness." Mock pushed a data tablet across the desk. "These are your new mapping assignments. The Outer Rim has plenty of uncharted space that doesn't involve humans." Reed picked up the tablet but didn't look at it. "Has anyone from the Guild ever actually been into human space? Have we even tried to negotiate mapping rights?" "This conversation is over, Captain." Mock returned to his terminal, dismissing Reed without another word. That night, in his personal quarters, Reed couldn't sleep. The blank space on the map haunted him. A true cartographer couldn't just accept an empty zone, especially one so large. It went against everything the Guild stood for. His terminal chimed with an incoming message. The sender was unlisted. Meet me at the observation deck. Level 7. Now. Reed hesitated, then pulled on his uniform and headed out. The observation deck was empty except for a single figure standing by the massive viewport that looked out onto the stars. Reed recognized her immediately. Dr. Ellis, the Guild's top xenobiologist. Doctor, Reed greeted her. You sent the message. Ellis didn't turn from the viewport. Do you know why I study alien life, Captain? I assumed for the same reason I map space. Curiosity. She nodded. Exactly. And right now, my curiosity is very frustrated. She finally turned to face him. I've been denied research access to human biological data for the 5th time. The Council seems very protective of human privacy, Reed said. It's more than that, Ellis replied. Last year, I managed to get a tissue sample from a human trader. Nothing invasive, just a few skin cells. Before I could analyze it, security confiscated my equipment and the sample. I was warned that any further attempts would result in my termination from the Guild. Reed's eyes widened. That seems extreme. It is. And it's not just biology. Their technology, culture, homeworld location, all classified. Ellis lowered her voice. Something isn't right, Captain. Species don't get this level of protection without a reason. What are you suggesting? Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. I'm suggesting we find out for ourselves, Ellis said. I know you've been obsessed with that blank spot on the map. And I know Security Officer Voss owes you a favor after you kept quiet about that incident on Proxima Station. Reed stared out at the stars. What she was suggesting was more than a violation of protocol. It could end their careers, or worse. A small ship. Ellis continued, seeing his hesitation. A quick jump into human space, just far enough to gather some basic data, then back out before anyone notices. Minimal risk, but we finally have some answers. And Voss? Reed asked, already on board with the idea. He can disable the tracking on a survey vessel. We'd be invisible. Reed thought about Director Malk's warning and the strange, heavy secrecy surrounding human space. His entire career had been built on filling in empty spaces on the map. How could he call himself a cartographer if he left this mystery unsolved? When do we leave? Reed asked. Ellis smiled. Tomorrow. The survey ship cartographer is scheduled for routine maintenance. It'll be off the monitoring grid for 8 hours. As Reed looked out at the endless stars, he knew he was about to cross a line from which there might be no return. But some questions demanded answers, no matter the cost. And the biggest question in the galaxy right now was, what were the humans hiding? The cartographer was a small mapping vessel, designed for quick survey missions rather than long journeys. Its cramped cockpit barely fit the 4 crew members as they prepared for the illegal border crossing. Stealth systems active, Security Officer Voss announced. His large 4-fingered hands moved quickly across the control panel. As far as Guild tracking is concerned, this ship is still in Maintenance Bay 3. Navigator Thomas had joined their mission at the last minute. When Reed had told him their plan, Thomas had simply nodded and said, "You'll need someone who can plot a quick escape route." Dr. Ellis checked her equipment one last time. My scanners are ready to collect biological and atmospheric data the moment we cross the border. Reed took a deep breath as he settled into the captain's chair. This is a mapping mission only. We go in, collect basic stellar data, and get out. No contact with humans, if we can avoid it. The others nodded in agreement. Coordinates set for the edge of human space, Thomas said. Ready when you are, Captain. Reed looked at each of his crew members. What they were about to do would likely end their careers if discovered. But the mystery of human space had haunted him for too long. Engage, Reed ordered. The cartographer's engines hummed as the ship moved away from the Guild station. Once they were clear of the immediate sensor range, Thomas activated the jump drive. The stars around them stretched into lines as the ship accelerated beyond light speed toward the forbidden zone. Approaching human space boundary, Thomas announced 3 hours later. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The star lines shrank back into points as the cartographer returned to normal space. Ahead of them was nothing unusual, just stars and empty space. "Are we sure this is the right location?" Reed asked, checking the coordinates. "Positive," Thomas confirmed. "We're right at the edge of the restricted zone." "Scanning now," Ellis said, activating her equipment. "I'm not detecting any defense systems or monitoring stations." Voss frowned at his security console. "That's odd. Most species protect their borders with something." "Maybe the humans really are as primitive as everyone thinks," Reed suggested. "Let's proceed." "Thomas, take us in." Slow speed. The cartographer moved forward, crossing the invisible line that marked the boundary of human space. Nothing happened. "Well, that was anticlimactic," Ellis said with a nervous laugh. "Beginning data collection." Reed activated the ship's mapping systems. "Let's chart the nearby star systems first, then we can." A loud alarm suddenly blared through the cockpit. Every screen on the bridge flashed red. "What's happening?" Reed shouted over the noise. Voss frantically worked his console. "Our stealth systems just went offline. All of them, simultaneously." "How is that possible?" Reed demanded. "Those are Guild top-level systems." "I don't know," Voss replied. "It's like something just switched them off." Thomas pointed at the view screen. "Captain, look." Where empty space had been moments before, ships now appeared. Not one or two, but dozens, surrounding the cartographer in a perfect sphere formation. They had seemingly materialized from nowhere. "Were they cloaked?" Ellis whispered, her eyes wide. "No system can cloak that perfectly," Voss said, his voice shaking. "Our sensors would have detected something, anything." The ships were unlike any Reed had seen before. They had smooth, dark hulls with strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. There were no visible engines or weapons, yet they moved with precise coordination. "Are they human ships?" Reed asked. Before anyone could answer, all the cartographer's systems shut down except for life support and a single communication channel. A message appeared on the main screen. "Unauthorized vessel. UAVENTERED restricted space. Maintain position and prepare for boarding." The message was in perfect galactic standard, the common language of all council species. "What do we do?" Thomas asked, looking to Reed. Reed stared at the message, then at the ships surrounding them. They had no engines, no weapons, and no escape route. "We comply," he said finally, "and hope they're in a good mood." 20 minutes later, a metallic clank echoed through the ship as something attached to their main airlock. "They've docked," Voss reported from the ship's internal sensors, the only system still functioning. The airlock cycled open without any input from the cartographer's crew. 3 figures stepped through. Reed had seen images of humans before, but these 3 didn't match the primitive species described in guild records. They wore sleek, form-fitting uniforms with no insignia or rank markings. Their faces were expressionless as they studied the 4 guild members. The lead human, a tall figure with short dark hair, finally spoke. "I am Commander Jackson of the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization." The human's galactic standard was perfect, without even a trace of accent. Reed stepped forward. "I am Captain Reed of the Galactic Mapping Guild. We are on a peaceful mission to violate explicit boundary treaties between the Galactic Council and human space." Jackson interrupted. "Yes, we're aware." Reed faltered. "How did you detect us?" "Our stealth systems." A slight smile appeared on Jackson's face. "Were disabled the moment you crossed our border. Technology isn't always what it seems, Captain." The human turned to Ellis, who was clutching her scanner. "And you were attempting to collect biological data, Dr. Ellis." Ellis gasped. "How do you know my name?" The human didn't answer, instead turning to Voss and Thomas, Security Officer Voss and Navigator Thomas, all from the Guild Station Epsilon 9. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. "How could you possibly know all this?" "We've been watching your approach since you left your station," Jackson said simply. "Your plan wasn't as secret as you thought." "That's impossible," Voss protested. "We were under stealth the entire time." The second human, shorter with light-colored hair, spoke for the first time. "Your guild technology is cute." Jackson gestured to the airlock. "You will come with us to Director Powell at Central Station. Your ship will be towed." "And if we refuse?" Reed asked, though he knew the question was pointless. The third human, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "You won't." It wasn't a threat. It was stated as a simple fact. As Reed and his crew were escorted through the airlock and onto the human vessel, he realized with growing dread that they had severely underestimated what they were walking into. The humans weren't the primitive species everyone believed them to be. And that raised a much more troubling question. What else had the Guild gotten wrong about human space? The human station didn't look like a military base. As Reed and his crew were led through wide, bright corridors, they saw gardens, art displays, and what appeared to be normal civilian life. Humans of various heights and colors walked past, giving curious glances to the alien visitors. "This isn't what I expected," Ellis whispered to Reed. Commander Jackson, walking ahead of them, turned slightly. "What did you expect, Doctor?" "Prison cells and weapon factories." Ellis flinched at being overheard from several steps away. Reed was beginning to suspect that human hearing was better than reported in Guild records. They arrived at a large door that slid open silently. Inside was a spacious office with a wall-sized window showing a view of stars and a blue-green planet in the distance. A woman stood with her back to them, looking out at the planet. She wore a simple gray uniform with no markings. When she turned, her face was neither friendly nor hostile, just professionally neutral. "Welcome to Central Station. I'm Director Powell," she said, gesturing to a round table with chairs. "Please, sit." After they were seated, Powell remained standing. "You've violated our border, despite clear warnings not to enter human space. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered an act of aggression." Reed started to speak, but Powell held up a hand to stop him. "However, we recognize this was an unauthorized Guild mission, driven by curiosity rather than malice." She looked directly at Reed. "Captain, your Guild has respected our boundaries for over 50 years. Why choose to violate them now?" Reed straightened in his chair. "Director, the Galactic Mapping Guild's purpose is to create complete star charts. The blank area in our maps goes against everything we stand for. And this justified breaking interspecies treaties?" Powell asked. "With respect, Director, these treaties make no sense," Reed argued. "Humans are a young species by galactic standards. Your technology shouldn't be advanced enough to warrant this level of secrecy." Powell's expression softened slightly. "Ah, you believe we're hiding because we're primitive." She touched a control on her wrist. "Let me show you something." The room dimmed, and a holographic display appeared above the table, a map of the galaxy. It was far more detailed than any Guild chart Reed had ever seen. "This is our current map of known space," Powell said. "Note that we have complete data on all regions, including those the Guild hasn't fully mapped yet." Reed stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. Some of these areas haven't been explored by anyone." "By the Guild, you mean," Powell corrected. She touched another control, and the map changed. Now the galaxy was divided into colored sections. Nearly half was highlighted in blue. "This was human space, approximately 12,000 years ago," Powell said quietly. The 4 Guild members fell silent, trying to process what they were seeing. 12,000 years ago. Humans were still living in caves on Earth, Ellis finally said. This can't be right. Earth wasn't our first home, Powell replied. Just our last refuge. 2 hours later, Reed's head was spinning. Director Powell had shown them historical records, archaeological evidence, and technological demonstrations that contradicted everything he thought he knew about human history. Let me understand this, he said slowly. Humans once controlled a vast empire spanning half the galaxy. Then you fought a war with an enemy called the Void, which nearly wiped you out. Correct, Powell confirmed. And to survive, you abandoned your original homeworlds, erased all records of your existence, and somehow made other species forget you ever existed. We used memory alteration technology on a galactic scale, Powell explained. It wasn't perfect, but it worked well enough. Most species have myths about ancient ones or precursors who vanished mysteriously. Those are fragmented memories of us. Ellis shook her head in amazement. But why retreat to Earth? It's not particularly special. That was the point, Powell said. We needed an unremarkable planet where we could rebuild without attracting attention. We erased our advanced technology, our history, everything, and started over. For thousands of years, we lived as primitives while the Void hunted for any trace of us. And now? Thomas asked. Has the Void given up? Powell's face darkened. No. It's out there, dormant, but not gone. We advanced our technology again, carefully, until we could detect and monitor Void activity. When we finally returned to space, we established the border around human space and asked the Galactic Council to respect it. But you didn't tell them why, Reed realized. We couldn't risk the information spreading, Powell said. The Void hunts through information networks. It can detect certain patterns, star charts, navigation data, even stories about us. The fewer people who know the truth, the safer everyone is. Voss, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. With respect, Director, this sounds far-fetched. If you're so advanced, why hide? Why not use your technology to destroy this Void? We tried, Powell said simply. We failed. And trillions died. The room fell silent again. Later, the crew was shown to comfortable quarters. They weren't prisoners, exactly, but they weren't free to leave either. Powell had explained they needed time to decide what to do with the guild members who now knew the truth. I still can't believe it, Thomas said as they gathered in Reed's room. Humans as ancient precursors. It's like finding out your pet is actually your ancestor. Did you see their technology? Ellis was still excited despite the circumstances. They have ships that can bend space without generating energy signatures. They monitored us through our supposedly perfect stealth systems. They're centuries beyond anything the Guild has. Reed sat quietly, thinking about the implications. If Powell was telling the truth, the blank spot on the map wasn't just human privacy. It was protection for the entire galaxy. Voss checked that the door was closed before speaking. I found something while they were bringing us here. He pulled out a small data chip. I managed to download it from an unsecured terminal while the guard was distracted. What is it? Reed asked. I'm not sure yet, Voss said, but it's encrypted with old guild security protocols, which means it was meant for us to find. He inserted the chip into his personal device. After a moment, a video file appeared. The face on the screen was familiar. Director Malk. Reed exclaimed in surprise. The guild director's gray face looked directly at them from the recording. If you're watching this, you've ignored my warnings and entered human space. What you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about the galaxy and put you in grave danger. The humans aren't our enemies. They're our guardians, and they've just run out of time. The recording ended, leaving the 4 guild members staring at each other in shock. Whatever they had stumbled into was far bigger than a simple mapping expedition. And somehow, Director Malk was involved. What does he mean, run out of time? Ellis asked, her voice tight with worry. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors outside their quarters. The doors slid open and Commander Jackson appeared, his calm demeanor replaced by urgent focus. "Come with me." "Now, what's happening?" Reed asked as they hurried after Jackson through the suddenly busy corridors. Humans were rushing in all directions, some in uniforms, others in civilian clothes. "Your ship," Jackson replied without slowing down. Its scanning equipment triggered something we've been dreading for centuries. They entered a large circular room filled with screens and control stations. Director Powell stood in the center, surrounded by officers reporting status updates. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. These people had trained for this moment. Powell looked up as they entered. "Captain Reed, it seems your mapping mission may have doomed us all." "I don't understand," Reed said. Powell gestured to a large screen showing the cartographer. "Your scanning equipment uses a very specific frequency pattern to collect stellar data. That pattern is recognizable." "Recognizable to what?" Ellis asked. "The void." Powell's face was grim. "Your scans created ripples in subspace that match old human technology, like a beacon announcing our continued existence." Another screen showed a distant region of space where something impossible was happening. Stars were disappearing, one by one, as if being swallowed by a moving shadow. "What is that?" Thomas whispered. "The Void's advanced scouts," Powell said. "They've awakened and are moving toward human space." Jackson led them to a side console where Director Mock's face appeared on a small screen. The guild director looked surprisingly calm given the circumstances. "Director Mock," Reed began, "you knew about all this." "Some guild leaders have known the truth about humans for generations," Mock admitted. "It was necessary for coordination." "Coordination of what?" Voss demanded. "The defense of the galaxy," Mock said simply. "Humans aren't the only ones who have been preparing. They just lead the effort." Powell touched a control, and the central display changed to show a vast network of strange devices positioned throughout the galaxy. "Early warning systems," she explained, "placed near every major civilization, but hidden from public knowledge." "We've been monitoring for void activity for thousands of years," Jackson added. "Until today, there were only minor incidents easily contained." Reed watched in amazement as the station around them began to transform. Walls shifted and reconfigured. What had appeared to be decorative elements folded out into complex equipment. The entire station was changing like a puzzle box being solved. "How is this possible?" Ellis breathed. "Quantum architecture," Powell said. "The station exists in multiple configurations simultaneously until needed." A new alarm sounded, and a technician called out, "Director, multiple emergence points detected. They're coming faster than predicted." Powell turned to Mock's screen. "Alert the Council. Activate Protocol Omega-7. Mock nodded and disappeared from the screen. "What's happening now?" Reed asked. "The real human fleet is being deployed," Jackson explained as he led them to a viewing window. Outside, space itself seemed to ripple. Where there had been empty void moments before, massive ships now appeared. Not dozens, but thousands. Their designs were unlike the smaller vessels that had intercepted the cartographer. These were clearly warships, bristling with technology Reed couldn't even begin to comprehend. "This is impossible," Voss said. "A fleet this size couldn't be hidden." "It wasn't hidden," Powell corrected. "It existed in a parallel phase state. Neither here nor elsewhere until needed." Reed struggled to process what he was seeing. "How many ships do you have?" "Enough, we hope," Powell said. Her wrist communicator chimed, and she answered it. After a brief conversation, she turned to the guild members with a serious expression. "We've contained the initial scout vessels, but the main void force is accelerating toward us. We need to know exactly what scanning equipment you used and how long it was active." Ellis stepped forward. "I can help with that. I designed some of the biological scanning systems myself." Powell nodded. "Good. Come with me." As Ellis left with Powell, Reed, Thomas, and Voss were directed to a side room with better viewing windows. From there, they could see the human fleet organizing into complex formations. "I still don't understand what this void actually is," Reed said to Jackson, who had stayed with them. "We don't fully understand it ourselves," Jackson admitted. "It's not a species as you would recognize one. It's something from between spaces. It consumes information, energy, and eventually entire star systems." "Why does it hunt humans specifically?" Thomas asked. "Because we fought it," Jackson said. "Thousands of years ago, we expanded too far, too fast. Our empire stretched across half the galaxy. We accidentally awakened the void when our ships entered certain regions of subspace. At first, we thought we could fight it conventionally." "What happened?" Reed asked, though he suspected the answer. "We lost. Badly. Billions died as entire systems were consumed. In desperation, we tried to erase ourselves from existence, destroying our own records, our maps, even altering the memories of other species so they wouldn't remember us. We retreated to Earth and started over, hoping the void would think us extinct." A flash of light outside the window caught their attention. Several human ships had engaged an invisible enemy, firing weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. "All this time," Voss said slowly, "the humans weren't hiding because they were weak. We were hiding because we knew what would happen if we were found again," Jackson finished. "And now, because of your mapping mission, the galaxy will face what we hoped to contain forever." Reed felt the weight of guilt crushing down on him. His obsession with filling in the blank spot on the map had awakened an ancient horror. He watched as more human ships moved into battle positions, their weapons charging for a fight against an enemy he still couldn't see. "What can we do to help?" he asked finally. Jackson looked at him for a long moment. "Pray that we're stronger now than we were 12,000 years ago." On the distant edge of human space, the darkness between stars began to move with purpose. 3 days had passed since the first Void Scouts appeared. Reed stood beside Director Powell on the command deck of the human flagship, the Defender. Through the massive view screen, he watched as hundreds of human ships engaged with the darkness that seemed to eat the very light around it. "Your weapons are actually working against it," Reed observed, amazed. "Last time, you said you couldn't defeat the void." "Last time, we fought alone," Powell replied. She gestured to a part of the display showing ships of various designs. "These are vessels from 17 species, all built using technology we secretly shared through the Guild over centuries." Reed recognized Guild designs among them. "The Guild has been building ships for you." "Not for us," Powell corrected. "With us. Your Director Malk is one of our strongest allies." As if summoned by his name, Malk appeared on a side screen. His normally emotionless face showed signs of strain. "The Galactic Council has been informed of the situation," Malk reported. "They're in shock, but mobilizing. The truth about human space is spreading quickly across all civilized worlds." "Too quickly," Powell said with concern. "The void feeds on information patterns. The more species learn about humans, the stronger the signal becomes." On another screen, Dr. Ellis was working with human scientists, analyzing data from Reed's mapping equipment. She looked up briefly and called out, "We've isolated the frequency pattern that triggered the awakening. It's the standard Guild cartography pulse, but something about your specific calibration created a resonance that matched ancient human technology. Can we use that to our advantage?" Reed asked. Jackson, who had been coordinating the fleet movements, turned to them. "We might. If we can create a similar pulse but invert the pattern, we could disrupt the void's cohesion. It wouldn't destroy it, but it might force it to retreat. Like sound waves canceling each other out," Thomas suggested. "Exactly," Ellis agreed. "But we'd need a delivery system that could get close enough without being consumed." The battle outside intensified. A group of void tendrils had broken through the defensive line and was moving toward the flagship. Ships moved to intercept, firing weapons that bent space itself. "We need a small, fast vessel," Jackson said. "Something that can slip through the chaos and get close to the void's central mass." Everyone on the command deck turned to look at the same display, showing the cartographer, still docked at the station. "No," Reed said, understanding immediately. "My ship doesn't have the speed or defenses for that kind of mission. But it has the exact scanning system that awakened the void," Powell pointed out. "We can modify it to emit the inverted pulse." "The ship would need to be piloted manually," Jackson added, "on a direct course through the void's outer layers." "A suicide mission," Voss said bluntly. The room fell silent. Reed looked at his crew, Ellis, Thomas, and Voss. They had come on this journey because of his obsession with filling in the blank spaces on the map. Now the fate of the galaxy might depend on one final mapping mission. "I'll do it," Reed said quietly. "This was my mistake. I'll fix it." "Captain," Thomas began to object. "No," Reed cut him off. "I drag you all into this. I'm not risking anyone else." Powell studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Commander Jackson will help you prepare the ship." 6 hours later, Reed sat alone in the cartographer's cockpit. The small ship had been modified with human technology that Ellis assured him would protect the vessel long enough to reach its target. The scanner that had inadvertently awakened the void had been reconfigured to emit the inverted pulse. "All systems ready," Reed reported over the comm. "Preparing for launch." Director Powell's voice came through clearly. "The fleet will create an opening for you. You'll have approximately 2 minutes to reach the target zone." "Understood." Reed checked the coordinates one final time. "Captain Reed," Mock's voice joined the channel. "The Guild owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Just make sure the new galactic maps show human space properly," Reed replied. "No more blank spots." "That is a promise," Mock said solemnly. As the cartographer detached from the station, Reed saw his crew watching from the command deck view screen. Ellis gave him a tearful smile. Thomas nodded respectfully. Voss raised his hand in a solemn salute. "Course laid in," Reed announced. "Beginning approach." The small ship accelerated toward the battle. Ahead, the human fleet was executing a complex maneuver, drawing the void's tendrils away from a central point, creating a narrow corridor. "Opening confirmed," Jackson's voice reported. "You have your window, Captain. Godspeed." Reed pushed the engines to maximum. The cartographer shot forward, straight toward the darkness that consumed light itself. Around him, massive ships exchanged fire with an enemy he could barely comprehend. As he neared the void, Reed saw it clearly for the first time. Not just darkness, but a shimmering absence, like reality being unwritten. Ships that got too close simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased. 30 seconds to target zone," Reed announced, his voice steady despite his fear. The cartographer began to shake as it entered the void's outer field. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Hull integrity was failing. 20 seconds. Outside, space itself seemed to tear and ripple. Through the gaps, Reed caught impossible glimpses of other realities, other universes being consumed. 10 seconds. The ship's systems began to fail one by one. The view screen flickered and died, leaving Reed flying blind. 5 seconds. With his final act as a cartographer, Reed activated the inverted pulse. The scanner that had been designed to map stars now fired its beam into the heart of the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a shockwave of pure white light exploded outward from the point of impact. The void's darkness recoiled like a living thing in pain. On the command deck of the Defender, everyone watched in stunned silence as the void began to retreat. Its tendrils pulled back from the human fleet, curling inward as if wounded. "It's working," Ellis whispered. "The pulse is disrupting its cohesion." "What about Reed?" Thomas asked, searching the displays for any sign of the cartographer. No one answered. As the void continued its retreat, a final transmission came through, broken and distorted. "This is Captain Reed. I can see. It's beautiful. I understand now. The map never ends. Then silence. The battle was over. The void had withdrawn to the dark space between galaxies, wounded but not destroyed. In the days that followed, the truth about human space spread throughout the galaxy. The humans revealed themselves fully to the Galactic Council, not as a young species, but as ancient guardians who had sacrificed their history to protect everyone. 1 month later, Ellis, Thomas, and Voss stood in the Guild's Great Hall as Director Malk unveiled the new official galactic map. Human space was no longer a blank spot, but detailed with thousands of stars and systems. And at the edge of the map, where the void had first appeared, a small notation read, "Reed's Passage, named for the cartographer who taught us that some boundaries exist not to hide what lies beyond, but to protect what lies within." The galaxy would never again forget that the map stopped at human space for a reason.